They say there are books that are read with the eyes, and there are books that are read with the soul. The Voynich manuscript belongs to neither world entirely. It is a threshold text, one foot in the realm of ink and parchment, the other sunk deep into the currents of the unseen. Its pages, fragile yet defiant against the erosion of centuries, are bound in calfskin vellum, but their heartbeat is of an older source, one that resists the calendar's grasp. The first time the modern world became aware of it was in 1912, when Wilfred Voynich, a Polish Lithuanian antiquarian and bookseller, stumbled upon it among a collection of dusty tomes at the Jesuit College of Villa Mondragon near Rome. Yet, even in that moment of supposed discovery, the book felt as if it had been waiting, not to be found but to reveal itself to a particular soul at a particular time. Voynich's name would become forever entangled with its mystery, though its true life began centuries before his gaze fell upon it. Its origin is obscured not by accident but by design. Carbon dating places its vellum around the early 15th century, somewhere between 1404 and 1438, a time when Europe was emerging from the shadows of the Black Death, when alchemical treatises whispered of the philosopher's stone, and hidden orders guarded their secrets with codes that bled into art, architecture, and song. Yet in the Voynich manuscript, the code is not merely linguistic. It is an entire language without ancestry, written in a flowing hand as fluid as water and as deliberate as a ritual gesture. The illustrations offer no relief from the enigma. Instead, they deepen it. Botanicals of plants that do not grow in any earthly garden, astronomical diagrams mapping constellations unknown to modern charts, bathing women in green pools beneath poked wheels of impossible machinery, intricate geometry spiraling inward like the eye of the soul. Each image feels less like an illustration and more like a seal, a talisman whose meaning is veiled from the uninitiated. To hold the book is to feel an ancient hum, as though the vellum is strung with the vibrations of a forgotten hymn. Those who have looked upon it with scholarly intent often find themselves slipping almost imperceptibly into a dreamlike fascination. They speak of the sensation of being read by the book rather than reading it. And so, from the moment of its rediscovery, it became less an object of study and more an initiation. The unbroken script, a web of glyph unlike any other known writing system, seemed to mock the tools of cryptography, defying both medieval cipher wheels and modern computational brute force. Linguists, mathematicians, occultists, and codebreakers of war have all tried to prise it open. They leave their attempts behind like offerings at a temple whose God never speaks, only watches. Yet there are whispers that the silence of the Voynich manuscript is not ignorance but refusal, that its pages will not yield to the mind that seeks with the hunger of conquest, but only to the heart that approaches in the posture of devotion. And so begins the journey into the folds of vellum that seem to hold the memory of a world that may never have existed in our own timeline, but which exists nonetheless. A book as an altar, a cipher as a mirror, a text as a doorway. From here, the path narrows. To follow it, we must step into the shadows of forgotten libraries, into the labyrinth of Renaissance esotericism, into the secret history that pulses beneath the manuscript skin. The trail of the Voynich manuscript winds backward through time like a serpent tracing the spine of history, its scales made of half-forgotten names and hidden transactions. Though its pages rest now in the Voynich Rare Book and Manuscript Library at Yale, its earlier journey remains cloaked in rumor, as though the book itself has erased its footprints to guard its own pilgrimage. Some accounts hint that the manuscript once belonged to Rudolf II, the Holy Roman Emperor, a ruler whose court in Prague during the late 16th century was a crucible of alchemists, astrologers, and seekers of forbidden arts. Rudolf, enthralled by the promise of transmutation and celestial wisdom, is said to have purchased the book for the staggering sum of 600 gold ducats, a fortune for a collection of ink on vellum. But this was no ordinary purchase. In those days, certain manuscripts were believed to be relics of power. Imbued with the quintessence of the sages who penned them, Rudolf's Prague was no mere political capital. It was a nexus where the terrestrial and celestial spheres interwove. Men like John Dee, the English magus, and Edward Kelly, his scryer, passed through these holes, seeking to unlock the Enochian language, the tongue of angels, to such a court. The Voynich manuscript would have been more than an enigma. It would have been a key perhaps to realms where the angels themselves kept libraries. Whether Rudolf understood its nature or only desired it for its aura of mystery, none can say. After the emperor's death, the trail grows colder, as though the manuscript slipped into the undercurrents of Europe's occult economy, traded in whispers between collectors, monastic scholars, and hidden brotherhoods. Some suspect it passed through the hands of the Rosicrucians, who saw in its strange plants and star maps the veiled architecture of a coming age. Others imagine it locked in the libraries of secret societies that used its cipher not as a code to be broken, but as a ritual language, a script whose very reading was an act of invocation. What is certain is that, by the 17th century, the manuscript surfaced in the possession of Georg Baresch, an obscure alchemist in Prague. Baresch, frustrated by his inability to decipher it, corresponded with Athanasius Kircher, the Jesuit polymath, renowned or infamous for claiming to have solved the mysteries of Egyptian hieroglyphs. Kircher's own library, a labyrinth of the strange and sacred, might have been a sanctuary for such a work, yet the manuscript eluded even his prodigious mind. The correspondence between Baresch, Kircher, and later owners is like a set of fading constellations, points of light in an otherwise starless night, suggesting a pattern too vast to yet be seen at each stop in its journey. The Voynich manuscript absorbs the intent of its possessor, the yearning of the emperor, the obsession of the alchemist, the pride of the scholar, and through all these hands, its heart remains closed as though it is waiting for something, or someone. In tracing this hidden history, one senses that the manuscript is not merely ancient but ageless, that it exists outside the linear river of time, slipping in and out of human history as a celestial body might disappear behind the shadow of a planet, only to reappear when the alignment is right. From here, the path will lead us deeper into its pages, where the images themselves become a map of worlds unseen, a cartography not of Earth, but of the soul's secret geographies. To open the Voynich manuscript is to step into a realm where the familiar rules of perception dissolve. The first impression is deceptively soft, delicate inks, careful hand, an almost playful elegance in the curves of its glyphs, yet beneath that grace lies an unsettling truth. The script does not belong to any known family of language. No Latin, no Greek, no Arabic or Hebrew root hides here. It is as though the letters were birthed whole from a mind and bound by our linguistic lineage. Each glyph a sigil whose meaning is not spoken but lived. As the eyes move across the pages, the script flows like water under moonlight, regular enough to suggest grammar, but free enough to evade the grasp of analysis. Cryptographers have mapped its statistical patterns, finding the strange consistency of a real language, yet without any bridge to the tongues of man. It is a paradox, structured chaos, deliberate mystery. Some whisper it is a constructed sacred language, an echo of the lingua Adamica, the primordial tongue humanity spoke before Babel fractured our speech. But it is the illustrations that truly pierce the mind. They are not the idle doodles of a medieval scribe, but the carefully placed emblems of an unknown cosmology. Botanical drawings dominate many folios, plants with roots like serpents, blossoms like suns, stems curling into geometric impossibilities. None match any earthly species, yet their anatomy is precise, as if copied from life. Were these sketches of flora from another continent, another age, or another world entirely. In other sections, circular diagrams unfurl like mandalas, populated with suns, moons, and constellations alien to modern astronomy. Spirals of stars lead to orbs containing naked women bathing in emerald waters, their bodies entwined with flowing tubes that connect them to vessels and wheels, alchemical, anatomical, astronomical, or perhaps all three, woven into a singular vision where body, cosmos, and element are not separate realms, but reflections of one another. The Voynich's architecture of meaning seems to rest upon the Hermetic principle, as above, so below. The plants may be mirrors of constellations, the women vessels of elemental forces, the spirals maps of the soul's ascent through invisible spheres. In this way, the manuscript reads like an illuminated book of initiation, a manual for an adept to navigate the correspondences between the earthly and the divine. Scholars and mystics alike have searched for a key, a cipher, a code, a Rosetta Stone. Yet perhaps the manuscript is not meant to be solved in the sense of translation. Perhaps its language is designed to bypass the rational mind, speaking instead directly to the deeper strata of consciousness, where symbols are the native tongue. In this sense, every reader is already in dialogue with it, not through the intellect, but through the archetypes it stirs awake, as the seeker lingers in these pages. There is a sensation, subtle at first, then undeniable, that the manuscript is not merely depicting something. It is doing something. Each spiral, each plant, each glyph may be an act of sympathetic magic, drawn to anchor a reality that once was, or will be again. From this threshold, we must journey further still, into the possibility that the Voynich manuscript is not a solitary riddle, but part of a hidden lineage of forbidden books, a current of wisdom passed through centuries, under layers of ciphers, waiting for the right eyes to open it. If the Voynich manuscript is a solitary island, then it floats in a vast, unseen archipelago, a chain of forbidden texts scattered across the seas of time. Some are remembered only in whispers. Others are buried deep in monastery vaults, and a few have been destroyed by fire, whether by accident or deliberate purge, yet all seem to share a strange kinship, as though fragments of one greater work were dispersed to prevent its complete awakening. In the medieval and Renaissance worlds, the idea of the liber occultus, the hidden book, carried both awe and dread. Certain volumes were said to contain not merely knowledge, but the living presence of that knowledge able to shake the mind of the reader. In such a context, the Voynich manuscript would have been guarded not because it was dangerous to hold, but because it was dangerous to understand. Consider the Book of Soiga, a 16th century treatise on magic and angelic alphabets, which John Dee claimed could only be deciphered by the Archangel Michael himself, or the mysterious Picatrix, a compendium of astrological magic that wandered from Arabic into Latin translation, carrying with it a web of talismans and cosmic rites. These, like the Voynich, were not idle curiosities but operating manuals for reality, diagrams for bending the currents of the invisible, the illustrations of the Voynich, its impossible flora, its star maps, echo an older tradition still, one rooted in the libraries of Alexandria, the esoteric schools of Alexandria and Hermopolis, and the Hellenistic fusion of Egyptian, Greek, and Chaldean thought. The plant world, the heavens, the human body, these were the three sacred texts the ancients believed God had written. To know one was to know all, for each was a reflection of the same eternal order. In this view, the Voynich may be less a book about plants and stars, and more a key for unlocking the hidden correspondences between them. And yet, there is another possibility, one more unsettling, that the manuscript belongs to a tradition not of this earth at all. Its unknown language, unearthly botany, and alien constellations could be remnants of a knowledge that came from beyond, from beings who walked among humanity in some forgotten epoch. leaving behind fragments encoded in the only way that could survive the erosion of worlds, in symbol. In certain hermetic circles, there is a teaching that great cycles of time end with the veiling and unveiling of wisdom, that in the closing of one age the sacred texts are hidden, and in the dawn of the next they reappear. The Voynich may be an artifact of such a cycle, a seed of memory planted for a future harvest. If this is so, its silence is not a refusal but a waiting. It does not speak because the appointed moment has not yet arrived. To walk further down this path means venturing into the strange interplay between secrecy and revelation, between the human custodian and the message that outlives them. It means asking whether the manuscript chose its keepers, and whether its reappearance in our era is an accident of history or a deliberate act in a larger, hidden design. From here, our gaze must turn not to the book alone, but to the currents of thought, the sacred orders, and the veiled brotherhoods who might have shaped it, and who may still guard its true purpose. The custodians of secret texts have always moved in the twilight, neither entirely of the visible world nor entirely absent from it. If the Voynich manuscript carries the resonance of such guardianship, then we must imagine the hands that might have shaped and shielded it. In the centuries of its silent wandering, Europe's undercurrent of hidden orders flourished. The Rosicrucians, shrouded in their manifestos, spoke of a cosmic reformation grounded in secret knowledge, knowledge encoded in symbols, diagrams, and cryptic texts that only the prepared initiate could grasp. The Voynich, with its botanical, alchemy, and star maps, could easily be read as an unbound chapter in their invisible library. Yet other orders too might have claimed it. The shadowy threads of the Knights Templar, surviving in fragmented cells after their suppression, were rumored to guard relics not of the Holy Land alone, but of ancient Egypt, Persia, and even Atlantis. The Voynich in their hands would have been more than an object of study. It would have been a cipher to their own initiatic lineage. And then there were the alchemists, who lived on the edge of respectability, draped in the double language of their art. For them, every plant drawn in the Voynich could have been both herb and planetary force, every pool a symbol of the dissolving waters of transformation, every will a diagram of the stages of the great work. In such circles, the book's indecipherable script would not have been a puzzle to crack but a shield, an occult safeguard, ensuring that the uninitiated could look upon it without ever touching its power. We must also consider the Jesuits, through whose hands the manuscript demonstrably passed before Wilfrid Voynich encountered it. Their libraries were vast, and their network reached into the furthest corners of the known world. In an age when the Church both suppressed and secretly studied heretical knowledge, a book like this might have been preserved not for destruction but for eventual use, perhaps even as part of a great, undisclosed archive of dangerous texts. There is, too, a subtler possibility that the Voynich manuscript was never the work of a single order or author, but the confluence of many, a codex born from the interweaving of several streams of esoteric tradition. The plants could be from one lineage of knowledge, the astronomical diagrams from another, the strange nymphs from yet another, merged into one deliberately dissonant whole to obscure their common root. In this light, the manuscript becomes not merely a hidden text but a mask, an intentional fusion of symbols designed to hide its heart beneath layers of unrelated forms. Only by perceiving the unity behind the apparent chaos could the seeker approach the truth. And here a thought begins to stir, that the greatest secret of the Voynich is not its language nor its imagery, but the mind it awakens in those who engage with it. The guardian orders may have been less interested in the book's contents than in the transformative effect it exerts upon the persistent reader, reshaping perception itself into a vessel capable of receiving what lies beyond the page. To approach such a threshold, we must step away from history's surface and move inward, into the inner architecture of the manuscript's imagery, where meaning is built not in words, but in the geometry of form and the alchemy of symbol. Within the Voynich manuscript's imagery lies a silent architecture, a temple built not of stone but of ink, where every curve, every spiral, every colored pool is laid out with the deliberation of a sacred plan. It is here, in these geometric and symbolic foundations, that the manuscript's truest voice may speak. The circular diagrams, so often mistaken for mere decoration, bear the unmistakable rhythm of sacred geometry. Rings within rings, starbursts radiating from central points, spirals folding into themselves. These are the same patterns found in the rose windows of Gothic cathedrals, in the floor plans of ancient temples, in the cosmic diagrams of Kabbalistic Sephirot. They are not mere art, they are maps of reality, expressions of the Hermetic axiom that the universe itself is constructed in number and proportion. The nymph-like figures, drawn in strange aquatic scenes, evoke the archetype of the water-bearer, an image found across civilizations as a symbol of the life-giving and the transformative. In alchemical iconography, such women are not human but personifications of forces, the moisture that dissolves, the waters of the prima materia, the celestial rivers flowing between worlds. In the Voynich, they seem to inhabit a liminal realm, between body and cosmos, as if the human form itself is being used as a celestial vessel. And the plants, to the untrained eye, they are whimsical inventions, but their structure suggests something else entirely. Each root, stem, and flower is rendered with the precision of an herbalist's manual, yet they belong to no known taxonomy. Some scholars have noted that certain leaves and blossoms resemble astronomical symbols, or that root structures mirror the branching of constellations. In the Hermetic tradition, plants are not simply material entities, but earthly mirrors of celestial forces, each leaf an antenna tuned to a specific star. Could these be the flora of another sky, preserved as a record of a different alignment of heavens? Even the script itself, in its flowing, almost hypnotic hand, may be a form of sigil writing. Not letters to be read, but forms to be absorbed. In magical practice, the very act of gazing upon a sigil can alter consciousness, bypassing the intellect and impressing itself directly upon the deeper strata of the psyche. If this is so, the Voynich's language is not a puzzle for the mind, but a key for the soul, turning in unseen locks. Viewed this way, the manuscript is less a book and more a ritual space, a portable temple whose walls are its pages. To study it is to walk through its corridors, each folio a chamber of initiation. The geometric diagrams open into celestial courts, the botanical folios into living gardens of power, the pools and streams into flowing veins of the great cosmic body. It may be that the true purpose of the Voynich is not to transmit information in the ordinary sense, but to enact a transformation, to reshape the inner geometry of the reader until they can perceive the world through the manuscript's own eyes. From here, our path draws toward the final thresholds, into the theories of origin that stretch beyond time and history, and into the possibility that the Voynich is not only ancient, but eternal. There are moments when the Voynich manuscript ceases to feel like a relic of the past and begins to seem like a message from outside of time entirely. Its unknown language, its alien flora, its cosmic diagrams, all whisper of an authorship that may not be confined to a single era, culture, or even species. Among the more daring theories, some have suggested that the book is a remnant of a civilization erased from human memory, a people whose knowledge wove together the earthly and the celestial as one seamless whole. If so, the manuscript could be the sole surviving ember of their wisdom, encoded in a form that would outlast the decay of empires and the shifts of language. Its script, then, is not simply unknown. It is untranslatable because it was never meant for the fragmented speech of our current age. Others push further still. proposing that the Voynich may be a gift from elsewhere, an artifact of contact with intelligences not born of our Earth. The plants, they argue, could be samples from their home world. The astronomical charts record of their own sky the human-like figures, depictions of life as they interpreted it. In this reading, the manuscript becomes a kind of cosmic seed packet, carrying the DNA of ideas meant to take root in the soil of human consciousness when the time was right. Yet there is another possibility, one that does not require lost continents or alien emissaries, but is no less strange, that the Voynich is a work of deliberate timelessness, created by a hidden hand to be a vessel of living myth. In the Hermetic tradition, a true symbol is not tied to one interpretation but opens into infinite layers of meaning. A book composed entirely of such symbols would be inexhaustible, each generation finding in it the reflection of its own questions, each reader becoming both translator and creator. If this is so, then the manuscript may be less about what it means and more about what it does. It creates a field, a kind of psychic resonance, in which the boundaries between history and imagination, between past and future, begin to dissolve. Within that space, the reader can experience a shift, the awakening of what some mystics call the inner memory, the sense that what is being revealed is not new knowledge, but something long forgotten. Perhaps that is why so many who have studied it speak not of solving the Voynich, but of being haunted by it. The haunting is the point. The manuscript does not yield its secrets, it plants them deep within the reader, where they may lie dormant until some unknown moment of flowering. And so we come to the threshold of the final chamber, where we must look not only at the manuscript but through it to the possibility that it is not an object to be deciphered at all, but a mirror, reflecting the hidden architecture of the one who seeks it. To reach the final chamber of the Voynich manuscript is to stand before a mirror in which no face is reflected, only the infinite corridors of possibility. Here, the question shifts, not what is this book, but what does it make of those who seek it. Every page, every glyph, every spiral is a summons. It does not speak in the linear tongue of answers, but in the cyclical breath of initiation. In this way, the Voynich aligns with the oldest teachings of the mysteries, that truth is never handed over fully formed, but must be awakened within the seeker through a journey of unknowing. In this journey, the book becomes a ritual, and the reader unwittingly its initiate. If the manuscript is a portal, then its opening is not in the parchment but in the reader's mind. The strange plants become memories of a primordial garden. The cosmic diagrams become the maps of one's own inner heavens. The flowing script ceases to be unreadable and becomes instead a song without sound, one that the heart understands long before the intellect does. There is a hermetic axiom: the lips of wisdom are closed, except to the ears of understanding. The Voynich manuscript is such a set of closed lips, and to stand before it without the ears of understanding is to hear only silence. But for the rare one who approaches it in the right state, in devotion, in humility, with the patience to live in mystery, the silence may one day part, not as a flash of translation, but as an unfolding, like the opening of a flower whose seed was planted lifetimes ago. Perhaps this is why the book has endured untouched by the centuries. Perhaps this is why no codebreaker, however brilliant, has claimed victory over it. The Voynich may not be keeping its secrets from us, it may be keeping them for us, held in trust until the moment humanity, or some fragment of it, is ready to receive what it holds. And so, the manuscript rests in a climate-controlled chamber, behind glass, in a university library, yet also in the dreams of those who have seen it, in the restless minds of those who have tried to decipher it, in the deep, wordless part of you that feels, even now that you have known it before. It waits, as it has always waited, not for translation, for recognition. When that day comes, when the right eyes open upon its pages, the Voynich manuscript will no longer be A mystery. It will be a homecoming, and the seeker will understand that it was never the book they were reading, it was the book all along reading them.